they align resources, they do professional development, work with teachers. They do an enormous amount of work. If they look a little tired, flat, it's well-deserved bags under the eyes. So I walked in and I said, hey, do you guys have something to do? What are y'all doing over here? Kind of smile. I said, okay, you get a couple hour break. But our people are great. They do incredible work. When you choose to do this work yourself and write curriculum and get it aligned to the standards, it's very difficult. It's time consuming. But I think you're going to see, even now, and years into the future, we're going to see great results from that. Because things that we're going to have access to, that's going to impact instruction, is going to be tremendous. So you would just join me and give them a hand for the work that they're doing. Dr. Elizabeth Clark, if she'll just wave, I want to introduce her and just say that Dr. Clark is a tremendous resource for us. She guides this work across the district and has got a lot of experience and we've met anyone that knows more about this work than she does. So we're so blessed to have her leading charges. And I'm going to ask Donna Solly to come up. I'm going to turn it over to her. Donna's our Director of Instruction, long-time verbal ISD leader. So we'll let Ms. Solly kind of get this kicked off. Donna, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I just want to start out by saying I have the best job in the world because I do get to work under Dr. Brown's leadership and Dr. Clark and learn from both of them. And then after I have an opportunity to work with them, then I get the support and great learning continued from these folks who are around the room who'll be doing most of the presentation this morning. The content coordinators and our instructional technology specialists are just an amazing group. And what we want to do today is to talk about what we do. And I know that many of you know a little bit about what we do, but we want to inform you about that down and dirty part, the part that causes the bags under the eyes, to kind of give you a better picture when you read about curriculum in the newspaper or you hear your children talk about it or you hear about it on the news. You'll understand, oh yes, in Birdville, here's what we are doing to address this particular part of the education of the children. The mission of Birdville ISD is to engage and encourage students and staff every day in meaningful work in a safe and caring environment. The curriculum and instruction staff, although we are not always out on campuses, not nearly as much as we'd like to be, but we believe in this mission. And even as we are writing assessment items or as we are writing the scope and sequence for a particular course, this mission is forefront in our minds. We want to always think about the students first, their learning, their ability to achieve, and then do it in an environment that is certainly safe for them and engaging and encouraging to them. Now, as we go through this morning, we will talk about many of the details of our work. Obviously, the purpose is, as I said, to engage meaningful learning in a good environment. We're using a standards-based curriculum. If you don't hear anything this morning, you will hear the word standards probably several times, and that word is bounced about in many media, and so it's good for you to know exactly what we're talking about when we talk about the standards. And all of our curriculum is purely based on the standards from the Texas Education Agency. At this time, I'm going to start by turning over the program to Julie Hyman, who is a coordinator for secondary social studies. And guys, as y'all come up, if you'll just introduce yourselves that way, and that way they can attach your face and name together.
Good morning. So when I'm looking out at a community of leaders and business owners, I'm thinking that quality control is an important part of your work. Would you agree with me? Making sure that the products and services that you produce are of the highest quality and standard that you can offer your stakeholders. Well, that is exactly what's true in education. Quality control is the heart of the work that we do in curriculum and instruction. And this diagram is really a model of the quality control process that we use in Birdville. There are 3 key pieces of curriculum. That is the written curriculum, the taught curriculum, and the tested curriculum. And all 3 of those things have to be in alignment in order to produce the quality results we want, which is learning for our students. So when you hear us talking about the elements of curriculum, these are the 3 pieces that we're discussing. And these things have really important emphasis in the classroom. The written curriculum is what the primary part of our work is. And that is very tightly aligned to the standards, which we're going to talk to you more about shortly. The taught curriculum is primarily the work of the classroom teacher, and that needs to be tightly in alignment with the written curriculum. But the how is really loosely aligned around some collaborative work that our teachers are doing. And then the tested curriculum is that which is aligned to the state standards for measuring our success. So we're going to delve into this model a little bit deeper. This year we have added a tool which is an automated curriculum learning system. It is called Eduphoria School Objects, and there are many pieces of it. You may hear teachers in your community talking about the pieces of Eduphoria. The forethought application in Eduphoria is where we house our online curriculum, where our teachers access the documents that we produce, the scope and sequence, and this is where they do their lesson planning. Also, we do our evaluation of teachers and our registration for workshops, and we track all of our assessment data through this system. So Eduphoria School Objects is a tool that we use in curriculum instruction to carry out our work. Okay. We're going to kind of pass this back and forth. This is Kim Hamilton. She's the coordinator for secondary mathematics.
I've got really much for microphones. Can you all hear me? Then I won't use the microphone because I feel a little too tied to that. I'm here to talk to you today about what it is that we are asking our teachers to teach. And we've mentioned before that we are a standards-based curriculum. Our standards in Texas are called the TEKS, or TEKS depending on who you talk to. They're the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And each of those standards is made up of a knowledge statement and of a student expectation. So the knowledge statement gives you the grand overview of this is the concept that we're trying to get across, and the student expectations break it down and say this is what the students are actually going to do with each of those concepts. The student expectations and the knowledge skills are tested, and so that's kind of our end game. It's time for you to get involved in our presentation. So I'm going to ask you to get your technology out if you have a smartphone with you, or if you don't want to do it, have someone at your table do it. We're going to give you some standards, and I'm going to ask you to identify which grade level you think that standard is going to be. So there's 2 ways that you can participate in this. This is called Poll Everywhere, and this is the tool that we use in our classrooms from time to time. You can do it by text message, or you can do it on the internet, whichever one you would prefer. So there will be messages underneath the question. So for example, if you were to want to answer this question, what is your favorite color, you could text this code in whatever your favorite color is to that number, and it will go to the website and we'll be able to keep track of what your answers are. Or you can do it on the website. Okay, so the first standard that we are going to talk about is select addition or subtraction to solve problems using 2-digit numbers, whether or not regrouping is necessary. Does everyone understand what all those words are? I think regrouping is probably a word that I never used when I was in school. That's borrowing. Okay? So just so that you're familiar with those terms. So either text or go onto this website, put in the code that's there, and then whatever your answer is. So if you think it's going to be 1st grade, if you think it's going to be 10th grade, whatever grade you think that's going to be, you'll text that to that number.
It is okay to help each other.
Yes. As you can see, the answers will pop up on the screen as you're texting them in or putting them in through the website. This is the same kind of thing that our kids can do. So if I'm actually in the classroom and I'm wanting to teach them about, say, geometry and ask them what shape it is, they can actually send this through an iPod Touch or through an iPad, any of those things that we can do messaging on.
So we have some technology specialists here if you're having help.
Yes. How many of you have elementary students? Okay, so you're probably thinking about what you've actually seen your child bring home for what your grade levels are going to be.
How many of you have middle school students you would like to wish that they were elementary students? Please graduate. Get out of my house.
They just pop in, they pop in.
Okay, so I see second, third, and fourth. This is actually a second grade text. How many of you know that we're getting new math texts? We are getting new math texts. They're being adopted in 2014-15. And this standard, of course, is changing to where we're not just talking about selecting addition or subtraction, we're talking about having them add or subtract with fluency. That's our new terminology in the math. Here's another one. This one says, explain the choices people in the United States free enterprise system can make about earning, spending, and saving money and where to live and work. So which grade level do you think they learn about the free enterprise system? Thank you. So there's a different code that you will put in front of your answer this time because it's a different question, and that's how the program will tell the difference between which question you're trying to answer. So which grade level do you think this one would be? And they're not necessarily in order.
Okay, so as you can see, those answers that are popping in there have ranged anywhere from 2nd to 7th up to 8th grade, right? The U.S. Free Enterprise is a fairly complex system. This is a 2nd grade standard in the state of Texas. So, learning about spending, earning, and saving money within the free enterprise system starts in early elementary and demonstrates really how rigorous the standards are for students at that level. Okay?
So part of what we wanted to show you this for is so that you would get a sense of what our standards look like and what our kids are being held accountable for. Because I don't think I learned about the free enterprise system when I was in elementary school. I don't even think I learned about it as a senior, if you want to know the honest truth. So we don't have to do the technology piece on this one, because just for the sake of time. This one says predict the molecular structure for molecules with linear, trigonal, planar, or tetrahedral electron pair geometries using valence shell electron pair repulsion, or the VSEPR theory.
I'm going with 2nd grade.
Anyone else going for second? What grade level do you think that would be in? It is not in 3rd, thank goodness. 6th grade. It's actually 10th grade. This is a chemistry test. Thankfully, we don't make the kids learn about the VSEPR theory any earlier than their sophomore year. That's a pretty big topic. The last one is analyze the structure of essential argument in contemporary policy speeches. for example, argument by cause and effect, analogy, authority, and identify the different types of evidence used to support the argument. What grade level do you think this one would be?
6. 7.
I think they learned that when they're about 2.
Are we talking about in the classroom or at home?
So this one would be for the classroom. I heard somebody say it actually is a 7th grade student. The other focus that we have in our district this year is on literacy. And we know that literacy is an issue in our district. Literacy, it used to be that when you said somebody was literate, it just meant that they could look at the words on a page and figure out what the words were. Literacy has a new definition now. It goes beyond just being able to read the words on a page. It's being able to apply and understand what those words really mean and to glean information out of the words that they're reading. This is something that we are working on as a district in all of our subjects through professional learning, through research-based strategies in the classroom, and through just a systemic approach to making sure that we're getting kids reading in all subject areas. I'm going to pass it on now to Anne-Marie Trammell. She's our ELA specialist, or coordinator. I don't know what her job title is.
Good morning. We just talked a little bit about the written curriculum, and that's our TEACs that come from the state. They're part of the Texas Administrative Code. And then we have board policy that says we'll follow those as well because we want to follow all the rules and regulations of our state. So that's the nitty gritty. But now let's get to the top because that's where our kids are every day, right? In the classroom. So we know that first of all, the top curriculum is always a work in progress. We have it written and we have it, that's common. The what we teach within the unit or the section of learning or whatever, that's common. Every teacher across our district should be working on the same kinds of things at the same time because they're following the written curriculum. But what varies is the how. I mean, Kim is an awesome math teacher and she could stand up here and teach a great lesson and then I could stand up and try to teach the same lesson and it's going to look nothing like that because we each have different children in our room and we have different ways of getting information across. So the how we choose to do that may vary. The lessons that we teach do not have to be a lockstep. You must do this, you must do this, you must do this. Because we don't have a purchased curriculum. We write, here's the standards that we follow. We do not say you must say this word on this day and this method. And that's really a benefit for our teachers because their students get to come out. And it's also a benefit for our kids because they get to have this one-on-one where I know where they are and we're doing things like that. We do collaborate within our grade level professional learning communities to design quality lessons where we've all contributed and where we work to incorporate those 21st century skills and technology to enhance our learning. We want our students not just to be successful on a state assessment. We want our students to be successful whatever they choose to do in life, a career, a college, post-college, whatever they do. We want them to have every tool that we can give them so that they can go out and be successful. And then our last thing that we really need to do is we have to modify for our students' unique needs. When we talk about unique needs, I always think about my kid struggles. He struggles a lot. I want someone to help him with that. But then there's also areas where he is scary smart. And I want people to think about that and push him farther. So we're going to meet our kid where they are and we're going to push them as far as they can, whether that be that they have a learning difference, they have a high level of intelligence, they have a high level of creativity, they're just a little quirky kiddo that we just need to sit on some days. You know, we've got all of those kids. And we have to treat them as individuals. We can't have everybody must fit in this box because guess what? The world's not like that. And so we have to help develop their gifts and help them find their strengths so that they can be successful beyond school. This is a great quote to me from a book called The Hero's Journey, and it's by Brown and Moffat, and it talks about the 21st century. This is becoming a more and more of a need because the kids we have in our classrooms do not really learn the way that I learned. Well, I didn't learn the way most of my peers learned. How many of you remember sitting in the desk and you got your little packet and you were good, compliant, I never got in trouble, I talked a lot. But other than that, you did what you were asked, but I don't remember ever having one of those moments where I really had to think. Anybody remember a time where it was just, I'm pondering this big learning and I'm trying to apply it to what I know and I just don't know. I'm just confused. Other than algebra, that was me on every day. but I mean, I just don't remember it, but our kids now are going to have to face situations that are unknown. They're going to have to face things that we've never had to think about it. And so really, education is going to have to change with that. We have to teach our kids not just to be able to fill in a blank and give you a skill, but to be able to apply that skill in a new situation. And to me, the most powerful thing as a parent is talking about that this is a national priority and a moral responsibility. I have a job to make sure that my child can function and function well. And I think kid walks in our school, they're still my child, right? I have my birth child and I have all the rest of it. And so I think that that's really important because we really want our students to be ready for college, should they choose that path. We also want them to be ready for a career, should they choose that path. And so we have to make sure that we're preparing our students. So we're trying to bring in all those 21st century skills to do that. 21st century learning really is student-centered. It's based on what the students need. And so what we want to do is look at the tools that we have in place and what we can do differently. So I have a little video for you. If I can hit the little clip.
Touches and iPads and a smartboard that the students use on a regular basis, and it appeals to all learning styles. They're able to see it, hear it, touch it. We did an activity last week using a smartboard when we were talking about maps, and they were able to go up and touch the board and see the information presented in an interesting way. Recently, I've introduced the students to the Smart Response System. It is a fun and engaging way for them to answer questions. It gives them immediate feedback, and that information goes directly into Eduphoria Aware, where I'm able to monitor their progress and better plan for their learning.
The iPad tablets have made a world of difference in our classes. First of all, I teach AP. Let's start there. We have an AP test at the end of the year, and for the first time ever, after a year with iPads, I had 88% of my kids pass the test. It has been phenomenal. Part of that reason is we're tested on knowing real-world situations going on in the Francophone world. They have instant access. If I can put a tablet in their hands, they can find out what's going on today, yesterday, or certainly in the last year, and be able to discuss it. They can also record themselves, which is another part of the AP test. My kids did phenomenally, and I think it's in large part due to the iPad.
So what do you notice about the kids doing that learning? They're what? Engaged. They're engaged, yeah. I tell my son I should be top of his head more than anything else. Always. What else? I'm sorry? Involved. Anytime we can give a kid something that hooks them into their learning, it hooks them into their skills, they actually do a higher level of learning. The brain likes novelty. This is novelty to them. We have a lot of tools in place, and we're continually looking for ways to access more for the benefit of our students. We want technology to enhance what they're doing. We want to get their attention, and we want to include them in every part of learning that we can. So now I'm going to send you over to Julie again, and she's going to talk about next lessons. I'm going to bring in the microphone too. Okay. In your mind, I want you to think back to a teacher in your career who was particularly effective. You learned a tremendous amount in their classroom as a student. Can everyone picture a teacher like that? Okay. Well, we want our teachers to be very, very effective with our students. So what is it that makes an effective teacher? Well, they plan lessons that are based around the standards of the text. They have very clearly defined objectives for that learning, so they know exactly what it is that they want to accomplish before that lesson ever begins. And we want them to teach the appropriate level of thinking or cognitive rigor, because as you saw from the standards we showed you earlier, the amount of rigorous thinking we're asking our students to do is highly increased from years ago. Right?
And in order to help our teachers become effective, we believe they have to really implement a 21st century skill for their own work, and that's collaboration. How many of you work on a collaborative team of employees in your business? Collaboration is essential to our work. And to that end, we have really put forth this idea of collaborating with grade level teachers who teach the same grade and go to the same subjects. And we have professional learning communities. And in those meetings where our teachers gather to do this work, to plan effective lessons, they really are focusing on 4 questions to guide everything that they do. The first question is, what do students need to know and be able to do? What's our end game? What's our product? And that, of course, comes from the written curriculum and the standards that we talked about. And then how will our teachers know that the students have learned it? They have to measure that learning to make sure they've accomplished their goal. So to that end, they're going to be planning classroom assessments. They're going to be looking at checks along the way to make sure the kids are getting what they're supposed to have learned. And then if they haven't learned it, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to intervene and make sure that we catch them up to speed on it? And then if they already knew it before we were going to teach it, what are we going to do to extend that learning? So those are the 4 main questions that we want our teachers to collaborate around in their professional learning communities. So to that end, we went in and we take a professional learning community at Birdville High. This group of teachers that I'm going to introduce you to are the World Geography freshman teachers at Birdville High. And this was at the end of a very long day. They meet from 4 to 6 o'clock once a week after their day is over, after track practice and all of those things, so that they can answer those 4 questions. And the question that this particular team is going to be answering is the first question, which is, what do students need to know and be able to do? We want to give you a glimpse into their world. Okay?
As we plan Russian unit, we want to see if we can hit any of those weaknesses from CBA semester exam in some of our Russian lessons.
The standard clarification for 8A. Okay, I think this is good because we've been talking about how our kids don't really get vocabulary. So on the clarifying standard, it says no difference between adaptation to and modification to the environment. So that's I think pretty big in this unit. Like you talk about the RLC, or you're talking about living in a environment and what's an adaptation. So that's a good one. So we've got the RLC. There's a radioactive waste plant with light seas, and we've got rivers, bridges, canals, irrigation, the Trans-Siberian Railroad. Okay, that's reindeer sledding in Siberia and the Trans-Siberian Railroad. And then we're going to, this is an open-ended question. We need them to use the term adaptation.
Is the first one adaptation?
Modification, yeah. This would be modification.
13.
This is adaptive. So that's a good writing.
I'm a second-year teacher. I could see the standard, but when I see them unpacked or in our professional development days, when we had a chance to unpack the standards, that really cleared a lot of clouds for me. I understand not only what I need to be teaching, but it really specifies the points that I need to make for each unit and each lesson.
And how? You've got the skills team. Rosie, if I give this piece of paper, you write this down.
We'll just do week 1.
So just kind of make a list of the ones that we got covered so we can mark them off. 21B, Rosie. And 21C.
I think we really focus on that first word of each T. Are we asking them to examine, to analyze, thinking critically about something? That first word is huge because that really defines how that question is going to be asked once they get to the star.
Make sure it goes with which population period.
Oh yeah. There's right here.
Where?
Oh, in Florida? Now look at your graph.
Oh, right.
And Rosie guessed North Carolina. Now, would that be true based on that information?
Is this from Geography Lab?
Okay, there's a good example assessment. We've been using these for our quizzes and stuff, and I think we need to keep using the questions that are, on this. All right, so next, that first week, skeleton outline. So Tuesday would be the intro. So what did I just say it was with all the names?
9A.
Okay, so that's the region one, with all the names and identifying features, and this starts the mapping lab, right?
That day will probably introduce the countries and what practice them together out loud.
So 2 days for that?
Yeah, I'll stay, I'll do CBA tomorrow, I'll be right with you.
Okay, so mapping lab 2 days, because, so this is, 9A, introducing the unit, and then the 21, whatever with the political. Okay, so that's Tuesday. Wednesday's mapping lab. And then Thursday, so now we're into the boards. We're doing the processes that form and shape the earth and those factors on that. So that's 2 days too, right? Are you doing the booklet? Because that's kind of that's a formative assessment. Right. They're going to start the booklet on Friday. Okay. Well, fold the books. I don't know how much of a fold it will.
Yeah, that'll be the styling bid.
Okay, so that's just a little glimpse into what a collaborative effort it is to visit in a PLC. Our teachers, some of our teachers have the opportunity to do that every day, and some do it once a week, but they all have an opportunity to meet together to consider those questions around the curriculum standard. So this is Courtney Williams, she's elementary science.
Good morning. All right, we're going to chat just real quick now about the assessment. And this is the piece that if you ask a kid, what are you going to do at school tomorrow? They say, oh, we get to take an assessment tomorrow. That's probably not what you do. Okay? But what we really want to get across to not only the community and to our teachers and to our students is that assessments are nothing more than a monitor of where they are. And we're really trying to work. I know when I was in school, it was you take the test, and your teacher hands it back, and you look at your grade, and you're either really happy or really upset, and you throw it in the trash, and you're done with it. And that's what we're really looking to move away from. You've heard that the standards-based phrase used several times this morning, and really that's what we're going for. We want to make sure that we're giving our kids every opportunity to know and understand and be familiar with what the state's asking them to do. Okay, so they're kind of depending on that, and what we want to look at assessments as being tools to validate that learning, to really look at it. In my house, we're a football family. We like to watch football on Sunday, so we're getting over the fact that the Cowboys are no good, and we're going to get past that. However, when you think about something like football, they play on Sunday, and they're either going to win or they're going to lose. But the coach doesn't just go in and say, well, don't do it today, so we'll see you next Sunday. What do they do the next day? They watch film, they talk about it, they stop and say, look what you did right there. Why do they do that? They want to learn, they want to improve upon what they did. And that's how we want to view assessments. We're going to let the kids take this assessment, and then we want to talk about it. And as a teacher, we want to take that data, and we want to say, wow, I'm looking at this, and my students did poorly on this particular area. I need to help them better with that. Or let's pull a child up and say, I'm looking at your data and we're struggling in this area. We really need you to work on it. So this assessment piece, we want to look at it more, think about watching the football films. We're using it as a tool to make sure that they're understanding. And as a teacher, that's going to drive the instruction in my classroom. As a curriculum coordinator, I'm going to take that data and I'm going to say, wow, I need to fix the curriculum in this area. They're not getting this. I need to add more. Or we're rocking this. We can pull back on this a little bit. Okay. So this assessment for learning. We're going to take that data. We're not going to just hand it back and look at the grade and throw it away. We're going to use it. Okay, why do we want to use it? It's I think a common, I don't know if I want to say myth, but you hear a lot of, they're just teaching to that old test. The kids take that STAR test and the schools are just teaching to that test. The thing that we really want everyone to understand, not only the kids and the teachers and the community, our kids are going to have so many levels that they're going to have to master in life. And what we want to provide is this opportunity and this education for them to be successful at all levels. And to do that, we need to be very clear about what we have to teach them and make sure that they understand it. And so this is sort of an example. We go back to that quality control triangle that Julie talked to you about at the beginning, and we're going to look at all these different exams that our kids are going to be faced with. Notice that the STAR, or the end of course exam, that's just one. You know, they're going to have SATs and college entrance exams and things like that we want to make sure that they're ready for. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create some learners that are ready to go and compete nationally and internationally when they get out. Okay, which takes us to a quote, back to football, Tony Dungy, okay? And we like this quote because it really encompasses what we believe here in Birdville about instruction. We are committed to achieving excellence, period. That's the bottom line. We want our kids to leave successful. We want them to be able to go out and do whatever they want to do, get all those tools into their toolbox so they can achieve what they want to achieve. The end.
Okay, I'll say so. Now do you know why I have the best job? I wanted to say, they talked about clarifying documents in there, and so you get a little bit better feel of just day-to-day work. I don't know exactly how many standards there are in all courses across the state. There are hundreds of them. For the core curriculum, this team, with the help of the instructional technology specialists and curriculum writers, have written that there was one slide we had a clarifying document on it. There is I'll say this correctly so it's accurate. By the end of this school year, all of the core content courses will have a standard clarifying document for every one of the standards. And that will be inside that curriculum framework, the curriculum system, management system that we have here. The point of this, it's really a unique design, and it's really helped teachers because they give the teachers what the standard is, what the level of rigor is for it. They give them a sample assessment item. We have some structures and strategies that we would suggest that they use for teaching it, but they don't have to. All of those things are provided for teachers for every one of the standards. Now, they're not perfect yet, and they'll get better and better and better over the next 2 years as we build up, make the curriculum more robust. But at least this group has given them that piece of resource for every one of the standards. And I will tell you that is an amazing feat, and they are to be commended. It has taken a village. It's taken all of them, plus the curriculum writers and our instructional technology specialist, Cheryl McKnight is back there, Kelly Montgomery is their coordinator. We work hand in hand to do things to prepare not only paper stuff for them to do and get it written on a piece of paper, but what is the best way to put it into the world in which our kids live today. So this kind of gives you a picture of what we've done the last 12 months and what we will continue to do. But curriculum is, well, I love it. That's why I love my job. It's like a puzzle. And you just have all these puzzle pieces and you get to put it together. And in the end, it's this beautiful picture that you want to keep until a better picture comes along, a different picture, and you can revise it there. So this is the work of this team. And if anyone ever says that you sit around and do nothing, now you know. They don't do nothing. They do plenty of work. I think Debbie Jones, I just looked right here and saw you. Debbie Jones is our elementary ELA coordinator. She didn't have a speaking part up here today, but that's primarily because she's been hard at work on that literacy piece, creating a handbook for literacy instruction in the district for next year. So we'll entertain questions. But we did thank you. We love to show off our work, and we are very proud of it because it is something that we feel confident is going to enable your children and our community to be a better place. Brent?
I do have some closing comments. Before I do that, I wanted to give you some time this morning, just as you think about who your children are or things that you hear. So we didn't want to allow some time to delve into some things that you would like us to talk about with our people here. So what comes to mind? What question do you have? Just clarification or something related to curriculum instruction? Somebody get us started off. Yes, sure. Oh, sorry.
backup or help we have for the teachers. You know, I've sat in on lessons, there's, you know, some really great lessons that I've seen, just sitting in the classroom watching, you know, either helping out as a sub, helping out as a, you know, and you know, you see a teacher do a really great lesson for maybe a day or two. And it's exciting to listen to as an adult, remembering that, oh, I learned this once before. And I know that I've learned it in the past, but I may not remember it all. And so listening to a teacher give the instruction was great. And the kids looked like they were sort of paying attention, and it was a great lesson. But at the end of the week, or at the end of the, you know, at the end of the chapter, the kids didn't do so well. And you look at it knowing that the teacher did a really good job explaining it, but you've got a handful or X number of kids who just either really don't want to be there, or really don't want to learn, or really have no interest. How do you go back and help the teacher to then say, well, we have to find a different way to force these kids to learn? I mean, how do you teach the kids who don't necessarily always want to listen to what's going on, even though the teacher is doing their job as a great instructor?
Well, maybe this is my first response to that, and I'll ask someone else to answer. There's a little bit of a difference, I think, in the past when an administrator might have gone through and drawn conclusion from just a glance or looking at what the teacher was doing and saying that's really effective teaching. What I use to conclude whether or not it's a very effective teacher is not what the teachers do, but rather what the students can now do as a result of teaching. So at the end of the week, if there's a large group of students who aren't able to do, and they don't know what they're able to do, would you say that teaching is very effective?
What I'm getting at is the attitude of the students.
I understand.
Reflecting.
But it's almost like years ago, one time I had a teacher told me that right English. She was very angry with these students. You know, they're just this or that. I did a good job of teaching the lesson. And she just got angry and angry. And finally I said, well, would you like me just to remove the students and let me teach the lesson with nobody in there? She goes, yeah, but, and she just stopped. And she just froze. And I didn't bail her out. And she said, oh my gosh, I've totally lost sight of what my job is. And I never had to say a word. She realized her job is not to teach. Her job is to get students to learn. So if that's what you have, if those are your customers, if those are the players you have that you're going to have to go to battle with, football, basketball, you've got to reach them. You've got to be good. So do we have interventions for kids with specific needs? Yes. And will a teacher do it the best job he or she can do? And not reach the kids? Yes. Do you have one-on-ones and small groups and intervention time for kids who don't learn issues? Yes. Because all kids are not going to get it during that great lesson, even if it is the best that the teacher can do. So it's a change in philosophy about that. So we know we have to have time to come back and get some of those kids. Your job as a teacher is to get that student engaged. You can't let them be disinterested because you've got to find a way to, what will connect Allison to them? How can I get Jerry? What is it that he likes? You got to find out about him. Go, oh, if you say gymnastics, Suzanne is all over it because she loves gymnastics. Or if you're related to horses, then Jerry will pay attention. So that's the job of the teacher. Comments out here.
I'm just going to agree with Dr. Brown. If you're letting this enthusiasm, I know you can do it, I know you can do it, I know you can do it, I know you can do it. Here's 16 ways that you can do it. And then building on those small successes. Like if you get a reluctant, you're talking about a reluctant kid. If you get a reluctant kid to get this much success, it goes into this much, it goes into this much. But it's relentless. You can't. I always say that in kindergarten they learn they can wait you out. Because if I stare at you, you're gonna tell me what I need to know. Your kids do it to you now. You know, so we have to wait them out, and we have to be relentless about it. You're going to, and I know you can. And I'm not going to let you not. And so it's a climate issue. It's a resource issue. We're putting a lot of resources in place to give those teachers those reteach pieces and those go back pieces. And because just saying it the same way and saying it louder doesn't help. You have to say it differently. So we're giving them a lot of pieces with that, but we can't ever let up. I say it's Betty Crocker. You're just going to sprinkle sugar around and keep going, and you're just going to be relentless about it. And so I think there's a lot of options that we have. And right now, especially, I don't know what level you're talking about. I have a freshman in high school. He's going to get worse before it gets better because he's going to. Yeah, they're going to push back before you make progress, because they have to understand you really are in your wellness about it. And so I think, I see amazing things that our teachers are doing, and they're continuing to use those resources. And
I agree with the teachers. I mean, I'm not trying to.
It's frustrating.
To say that, but I sub and I only sub one school. And I look at all the different teachers, and everyone has different styles. And there's some teachers whose styles I like and some that I don't maybe like. That's my work different. But all the kids have their ways of learning. What I'm trying to understand is how do you reach those kids that we're in April now and they still don't want to do their homework? They still don't want to pay attention to class. They don't want to show up to school. How those kids are hindering everything that affects the school. Because then when you get to an assessment like STAR, if those kids have missed 60 or 70 days of school, that draws on that.
We just never give up. I mean, the way I think about it is those mamas and daddies are sending us the best kid they have. And I've been in education 20 years, K through college. And I have yet to have met a parent that really doesn't want to do what's right for their kids. They just don't always know. So we need to help. We need to help educate our community as well as our kids. And I think we just never give up. We just keep saying, this is not how we act here. This is what we do here, and you can do it. And you can give them a hug, and beat them on the head, and move on.
You have impact when you can. You look at all the things you mentioned, you ask which of those things can we impact. How can we make that better? Is there something we can do to encourage attendance? And the thing to do that with the child is if you can connect with them in some way, get them to believe that you really want them to be there, they're more apt to. I cannot tell you how many times I've had kids tell me through 29 years of saying, yeah, but I just didn't want to disappoint Ms. Jackson. And it's that personal relationship that you can give with a kid. And there's not many kids that you can reach. Some of them take a long time and a lot of commitment, and a lot of patience, and a lot of times you just think it'd be easier just to put up with them. You just hang in there because you never know where the breakthrough's going to come, what conversation or what connection you can have with them. So you just, great question.
Dr. Brown, if I might, I think that I can say to you from curriculum instruction and professional learning, what we try to do is to continuously equip teachers with the tools that they need to do that. We spend a lot of time in professional learning. I alluded to the reading handbook, that we know that we have a deficit in our knowledge and depth of understanding about working in small groups in classrooms. And so we purposefully provide professional learning to teachers so that they are better at that particular structure in the classroom. And I think that when we all get better at individual pieces like that and we continue to get new ideas about ways to reach those challenging kids, then the number of challenges gets lower because you make that connection. So that's another role of our department is to equip teachers with learning that they need so that they can make a diverse group of kids.
How do our critiques and standards compare with other states? And where would we sit as far as our
Good question.
There you go.
Each state has their own state standards. Now, across the nation, there's been a push for what's called Common Core. So there's getting to be more of a national push for that. Texas, North Carolina, a few other states have, over the years, kind of led from a standpoint of what I would call rigorous standards and more rigorous assessments. So Texas has not been really willing to engage to meet the average of what other states have done because we feel like we're already in a rigorous place. And I'm speaking for others. I'm saying, we Texas, so the people who guide that work, the state board, legislature, people like that. So as we look at how ours compare normally more rigorously than most other states. That is interesting that we have different state standards, but what we do, we have different assessments by state. So I would say ours primarily are more rigorous. Who else would like to weigh in?
I would just say, I think that from a social scientist perspective, we have a real culture in Texas where that rugged individualist, we sort of want to go our own way, and that attitude really is pervasive in our legislature and our leadership statewide. So while there is movement and the discussion in the educational arena about should we be in alignment with Common Core, which is the national standards that many states have adopted. For instance, in Texas, they are implementing new math standards that are more in alignment with the national Common Core, but in my subject area, which is social studies, they're not in alignment at all because we have a very specific perspective and point of view that we want to teach students in Texas. So I would say we're standing pretty independently on that issue in Texas, but there may be some movement toward it in the years ahead.
I think it gives us an advantage as far as promoting our students as a state. Like, you're from Texas, you know, as far as being more of a push individual, more of a, you know.
I think it reinforces this idea of rugged individualism in our state, but it is a disadvantage in that eventually the resources that we use will all be directed to, it's a matter of economics. Resources will be directed at the largest market. And if all of the other states, but two, I think at this point, who have adopted Common Core, the largest market, they're going to line up the resources with that rather than with Texas, which used to be the alignment market because we bought so many textbooks in Texas, and that necessarily isn't the case anymore either. So it's a disadvantage in some cases.
Great question. So 2 questions. I'm sorry. First question, so does that comply with the issue of the 4x4x4 being up for discussion at this point? Is that, I mean, like for instance, I'm just looking at that curriculum or that state mandated aspect, is that possibly going to change?
It is under discussion because what we as educators have been saying to the legislature is you need to give us flexibility. Because sometimes they have good intentions and they think, oh, 4 years of math, 4 years of science is great. Well, it is great for those students who need to pursue that. But if you're trying to get into a fine arts college up in the Northeast and your resume needs to be packed with more courses that would align with that, then the conversations that are happening now in the legislature are about, well, maybe not changing the total number, but giving flexibility. Maybe you could be a 5-3 or a 6-2, you know, or a 3-3-3-3-3. In other words, like maybe you need diversity as customized. You need to have a standard of knowledge in math and science, yes, but some of those upper math courses are great for an engineer or a med school person or lots of fields. But for another person who wants to do something different, let them customize. Let them meet the standard but customize. So those conversations are happening, and that's legislation.
But it is on the table.
It is being discussed.
Okay. All right, my other question is, when you're in the classroom and you have really high learners and some learners that might be under average in their learning possibilities, you're a teacher and you have 36 students in your classroom, what tools are we giving our teachers? I know that we have the tool of sending students who are maybe not getting it, they can go to the Achievement Center at our school, or they can do tutorials, and I get how we're bringing underachievers up in that process. What tools are we giving our teachers to really help those students that are above that average, who have already learned it?
Well, if you go into elementary classrooms now, elementary I think has gotten this for some time. Because I walk into classrooms all the time. I visit schools on Thursday mornings. We go into classrooms, usually at least 2 schools a week. And we go into kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade classrooms, especially this time of year, kindergarten. And you walk in and you see kids doing 8 or 9 different things. And there's only one teacher. And there might be an aide or a co-teacher in there, but often it's one teacher. And you've got an individual student here with a headset on, listening to a book being read. You've got 2 others over here with technology. You've got 2 more putting puzzles together. So you have all these different stations so you can differentiate instruction. And that's what we're looking to do in learning centers.
In elementary, that's a lot easier. As someone who taught elementary, that is a lot easier.
Sure.
I'm more interested in, and now I am subbing within the middle school and the high school systems. That's where my kids are, and I'm not seeing that happen as much. I understand in elementary it's super, it seems to be much more conducive in the elementary atmosphere rather than in the middle school and high school atmosphere.
Yes, you have to give teachers, I mean, there's certainly incredible professional learning, and there's people, Carol and Thomas, one of the greatest about differentiated instruction. But it's a whole lot easier to pronounce that, to define it, than it is to do it. What you saw those teachers doing, those professional learning communities, your PLC, in the absence of that, I don't think you have a chance to see that, because you're not born with this innate ability. Oh, this is a big deal. I've got 30 kids, and I just have to doing all these different things. For some people, it's a classroom management issue. To others, it's a creativity issue. What am I going to have to do? But you've got to have a point, and your reason is you have them rotate through 6 stations, and for this station, the 3 of you are here, and I looked at the data, and you guys have a weakness. I grouped you together on purpose, but you have a weakness in this area, so when you come to the table, we talk about this. But when this group rotates in, they were brought together because they have something different. So it's my ability, while these other groups are doing maybe an original activity with technology, I'm getting with you, and I can do sometimes to bring those kids up. Is it a reality that you described, that that's what we have? It is. We don't get to screen and take kids at your lowest level. Sorry, you go somewhere else. And the push from the state is even more. And from a special education standpoint, we're mainstreaming those kids in. And the reason why is because if we're going to ask a special education student to take an on-level assessment, if we can't keep them separated and try to teach them at their level, you've got to connect with them here, try to bring them up. But if they can get exposure to that level, curriculum instruction, how can they have a chance at performing? So the state drives a lot of sometimes what we do. But it's very difficult just to say, oh, we're going to have a session on differentiated instruction, and once you've been there and you check it off that you've been, then you're going to see it. It's very challenging. So we're trying to give teachers time in middle school and high school, that extra planning period, so that we can say, one of those periods is yours, that another period is for doing what they're doing. And part of that certainly can be, okay, how are we going to meet the needs of our varying learners, what we're going to do for the special education students, what we're going to do for those who already have it, those 4 questions we talked about. So that's huge, and it's very complex. But professional learning, there's a long list of things.
Right, yeah, I was going to say, go right back to that professional learning piece. We can't expect teachers to do things differently without teaching them, without modeling and teaching them. But we do, I mean, and I will grant you that to say 100% every day, that kind of differentiation happens in classrooms across America. It's certainly not, Cardinal's no different. No, that doesn't happen. But we have things like flipped classroom learning. It's a new term, but sometimes some of our teachers are giving kids the information. They'll send it to them in an email. The kids review what's going to be discussed, a project that's going to be done the next day, do that reading at home, and then they come into the classroom and they're able then to do more project-based kind of work, working cooperatively with teams. We are going to be moving to a bigger use of online learning through Compass Learning or some other companies that have some online courses that will allow us to do some of that small group work. We are, again, at purposeful professional learning with secondary teachers about using small group instruction, because you're right, kindergarten teachers have it mastered. And I was a secondary teacher before in my earlier life, so I get, that I didn't know how to do that, but so we are in the process of doing that. But much like a big, large ship, it doesn't turn quickly. It's a slow, purposeful process so that there's not chaos, so that it's not the Titanic and it sinks. We have a plan, and we are moving to equip teachers with the tools. So
that's what I was just asking, is what are we doing to help them?
Right, so there's a lot of professional learning and modeling for going.
Oh, I was just going to add, and Donna said it nicely, but those formative assessments are going to help too, because that'll give those teachers the tools from the get-go to know who's, and it's true, I can get all content, but I'm looking at science. There's certain areas of science that a kid could excel in, and then, the next week you get on a different topic and they don't. So it's that formative assessment, always looking, and what I tell secondary teachers too when we're doing the structures and strategies training, you have the most dependent learners as kindergartners who are able to do it. So why can't a teenager? They're much more independent learners. So it's just that mindset. They're getting there.
Let me kind of summarize some things, because I know I always listen. I've learned to listen to things we say. I want to make sure I explain some things. You're a teacher, say I'm an AP teacher, and some people have lived to go, what's an AP teacher? Advanced placement, those are your upper level kids. When you get up to the upper levels of high school, normally juniors and seniors, you can take advanced placement classes of the line to college school standards. If you choose to, you can take an exam at the end of it and get college credit if you score a 3, 4, or 5 on the 5 scale. So you hear those talks. So that is different for an advanced placement teacher who has students that do certainly we have special education needs for students that may do well in some things but struggle in other things because of learning disability. So those are challenges. But even as those teachers were collaborating, so when you hear that, I guess my question would be, we probably should have been doing this all along, because think about a beginning teacher, a first year teacher sitting in that group. How much better is she going to teach your son or daughter if she's exposed to that, gaining the benefit of those other teachers who've been down the road, they're sharing strategies, sharing labs, lessons, tried and true things, resources, and that's the whole point, because this is the one area. It's not like you're a brand new doctor and you start out working under a doctor and you don't get to do the surgery until you watch a bunch of times. What we do with first year teacher. Congratulations, you're certified, qualified, at least here's your 150 students, and you have the same responsibilities as a 25-year teacher. You're in the room by yourself. Do you expect that first year teacher to be successful? Would you expect that doctor to say, absolutely, the first surgery, and I'm running this very complex thing that I've never seen before, and that veterans have to open the front, just clamp that off, and let's go around this way. I mean, that's what you want. And our kids' lives are safe as well, so that's why we're offering that PLC time, so that first year teacher, or even second year, are new to a subject, or new to a grade level. You could be experienced, but you're in a new grade level with new standards. So we're trying to create an environment that sets people up for success. So all of this fits together. The formative assessment that allows a teacher to at least have data to look at this as well. Looks like, Lisa and Kristen have the same issue. I think I'll ask them to come in and I'll work with them to catch them up. But you do. You don't fill in the gaps. Those gaps just pile on each other. And math, for example, is a great one that you can't have gaps. It builds. It percent goes up. So when you have gaps, you have misunderstanding. So all this fits together. My last comment I'll make is looking at the kids that you see, looking at handheld technology, looking at kiddos and the iPads and all that. That's a big part of the way we engage kids in learning. But those things don't just, nobody just stops and delivers those to us every so often and says, here's your 1,000 iPads. We have to budget for those. We've got a pot of money, our general operating fund, that's used for all of the things that we do. And then occasionally we have opportunity for bond funds. So often the technology, as you see, is to be a part of that. That's those classrooms can be engaging for those kids. And we can have the resources and the training. So I encourage you to take a look at what's in the bond so that if it is successful, we can see that, hey, if those things are provided there, and we have additional funds to use for professional learning and for things that teachers need in order to do the work. Because otherwise, all the repairs, all the technology, and all those things come out of the general fund, that limits us. This is the only pot we have. So if you've not done that, please go in and look very carefully at what's in the bond so you can see what's in it. Relate it back to what you've seen today, and let that help you make a decision about the future. So we're going to hang around for a little bit. We'll thank the curriculum instructor department.